Well, hello and welcome to the session. It's Corey Sievers here with the Savvy team, and congratulations for joining in on Lockdown Live. So our intention with this was that, many people around the country and indeed the world are actually on lockdown right now, and we thought it would be a wonderful chance to come together, share some laughs. This Lockdown Live is really all about sharing the lows and the laughs and the fears and the freedoms, really to get the chance to get it off our chest and express ourselves. So we've had a lot of things going on within the community, lots of people asking questions, lots of people sharing their thoughts. And what I find that's sad about what's going on right now with lockdowns, with everything that's going on with COVID-19, is that the beliefs are actually somewhat dividing dividing people. It's separating people and not bringing people together, really. It's dividing us in our views, and I think that's a real shame, because the very beginning of science is about observation, coming up with a hypothesis and testing it. And many scientific theories wouldn't have developed if they didn't have opposition to challenge the general narrative. So I don't think that challenging our beliefs and our thoughts is a bad thing, but I think we all need to be open to, to seeing that there's always another side to any story. And so we really wanted to come together and hear your viewpoint, whether it be good, bad, indifferent, whatever. This session is really for you to share your thoughts. Now, in the preview post, we had a number of people sharing their thoughts, lots of links, lots of humor, and hopefully we can share some of that with you during this session. Looks like the feed has a little bit of a lag, so we'll hope that we can keep up and have a good session here during Lockdown Live. So let me know where you're coming in from. If you're jumping on live, then give me a wave and say hi. And we'd love to have your thoughts come through in this particular session. So I should be able to see the comments coming through. It looks again like we've got a little bit of a lag, but we'll cross our fingers that all is good, and really, really look forward to hearing from you. So here in our wellness organization, we're all about helping you reach the next level of health and wellness. And so, this understanding what can be done to optimize your body and, prevent illness is one of the cornerstones of what we do. I guess we like to say that we want to teach you to be savvy. And what we mean by savvy is astute, sharp, perceptive, and informed. And this session is no different. Although we'd like to have some fun, we want to inform you and make sure that you are, prepared to make an educated decision on your future health. Okay, so really, really important. And of course, it is very, very important that none of what we're going to be sharing is considered medical advice. So if there are views shared by participants, things shared in the comments, things that we have shared that have come in from community members in preparation for this, please understand that this is their viewpoint, it's our viewpoint, and none of the advice should be considered medical advice. So, when we're talking about what to do regarding your own health and well-being, I have a message that I'm looking forward to sharing with you from our Prime Minister here in Australia. And so obviously, our shows are broadcast all around the world. People see us from all around the world. But I wanted to share with those Aussies here a message straight from our Prime Minister. And I think that we'll share that towards the end. I think it's very, very important. Maybe we might share it more than once. We'll see how we go. Because I think it is the crux of the matter. He said it. And it's about the fact that the choice is in your hands about the future of your well-being. So please make sure you're making an educated choice, and that anything regarding vaccinations, COVID-19, any viral epidemic, or your current health, make sure that you're discussing this with your healthcare provider and having informed consent and making an informed decision as well. So So hi Linda, great. Yeah, look, slow issues. I don't know. Could be my computer. Could be the gremlins. Could be the powers that be. Many people are really believe that there's a bit of a conspiracy here about information. I do think that it's been sad that when this pandemic, if we can call it that, first hit, we tried to share information with our community, and our emails started to go to spam. Posts, the reach was limited, and you've probably heard of things as censoring and all that sort of thing. And that in and of itself isn't scientific, because the very crux of any science, if a researcher comes up with science, the whole purpose is to publish it in a scientific journal, looking for the opposing view, looking for the argument, because it's only through that do we really find or get closer to, maybe there's not a single truth, but closer to our truth, what is true for us. And so, we're all entitled to a vantage point. I love the movie Vantage Point, and it covers a story of really just one happening and how everybody can see it from a different perspective. And I think it's the same thing with the story of the blind men and the elephant. They've all got a hold of a different part of the elephant, and they're all describing what they believe an elephant to be. One's got a hold of the trunk and they said an elephant is like a big snake. One's got a hold of the tail going, no, an elephant's not a big snake, it's a little fluffy mouse. And so, we can have opinions from both ends of the spectrum like that. And I think for all of us, it's about not having hard and fast truth. And it's also about having fun with life. So that's a little bit about what Lockdown Live is all about. We'd love to hear your lows, your laughs, your fears, and your freedoms too. And so yes, all right. So hi Gwen, joining from Markula. Battery is low, so don't know how long it's going to last. Dear oh dear. So after 18 months dealing with this whole issue of this virus right now, it might feel for many a bit like Groundhog Day, like this cartoon depicts. Good morning, and today Victoria is waking up to a strict stage 4 lockdown due to an outbreak of COVID in its hotel quarantine system. And we've had a lot of that lately now in New South Wales. So certainly Victoria got hit with all of this, and now New South Wales in strict lockdowns. Right at this point, Queensland has just entered into a longer lockdown as well. So, it's interesting what we're dealing with right now. So again, if you've had any thoughts, share them with us. Share some funny images, something that has made you think. If it's made you think and changed your mindset, I think that's important to share with everyone as well. So you might feel a little bit like this, that the year in review, thinking about 2020, how was 2020? Was it a bit like this? The year in review is just an emoji this year, a poop emoji. And for many, unfortunately, 2021 is panning out. Even though we began the year with hope and really believing that we were seeing the end of all of this, we're entering, some troublesome times now, and very troublesome for small business and many of the types of businesses that continually get locked down. I think that's very, very sad. So, do your best to maintain a happy face, I guess, is the thing to be focused on. All right. So what I'd like to do during this session is, of course, if you have any thoughts, then do please share, and I can bring them up on screen and discuss them. But I have some things that have been sent in by other people as well. I'd like to share with you some humor, some thoughts, some videos, just so that we can have a really good discussion on what we believe all this to be. Now, I was asked by a number of members in our community, and I think this is worthwhile talking about up front, since we're talking about lockdown and all that sort of thing. And by the way, if you've just joined, Corey Sievers here with the Savvy team, and we are here for Lockdown Live. We want to hear your lows and your laughs, your fears, and and discuss freedom from all of this, and moving forward and taking control of our own well-being, and also, you know, dealing with the controls and freedoms that we all deal with or don't in this country. So I was asked by many community members over the last 6 months about our opinions on vaccinations. Now, we have endeavored never to offer an opinion. We don't offer medical advice. This is not medical advice. This is just, you know, for educational purposes only, to discuss your thoughts, and really so that we can all be better educated. Because savvy, you know, for us, the definition of being savvy is astute, sharp, perceptive, and informed. And I do believe that many people aren't well informed in terms of what's possible for their own well-being. And that's what I do hope that this session can be, as well as a little bit of lightheartedness too. So I was asked by community members a number of times over the last 6 months about opinions, and so I guess I wanted to share that with you right now. And so as an organization here in the Savvy team, we are pro-choice. So we are for personal responsibility and personal choice in terms of healthcare. And you'll see that that perfectly aligns with our Prime Minister's stated, what he stated on live television. So we're for pro-choice. So we don't actually, just like we don't have any religious affiliations in our organization, although many people do, many organizations do, we don't, because we believe in freedom of beliefs. We don't, you know, we have people of all different race and creed, etc. So we don't put our beliefs on to others. That being said, we do believe in more of a natural approach. So if everything exists on a spectrum, from totally medical over here to totally all woo-woo down there, everything exists, or totally natural, everything exists on a spectrum. And so, you know, your beliefs will exist on a spectrum too, and that's okay. You're okay to be where you're at. And so we do tend to have a belief in more of a natural approach than a drug-based approach. So we do, although we believe in our organization that it is your choice, we do slant towards a natural approach in preventative measures most of the time. But then if that means that in your situation, on discussion with your healthcare provider, you believe that vaccination along with some other dietary and lifestyle approaches are the best for you, then that is your choice. So we believe in freedom of choice. So that was my answer to most of the community members. That being said, myself personally, I invest a lot in my health and have had to overcome a lot of different health challenges myself. And I am not by any means an anti-vaxxer, but I personally do not believe that I want the vaccination. Okay, and so we have a lot of things that I'd like to share with you around that. So again, if you've just joined recently, welcome to Lockdown Live. Corey Sievers here on behalf of the Savvy team, talking about, you know, things that you can do to lift your mood and become better educated around this whole issue of wellness, as well as the viral situation that we're currently dealing with. So what I might do is kick things off a little bit with looking at some of the videos that we have lined up for you. And first of all, which should I share with you first? What I'd like to do first, I guess, is share the position of the World Health Organization and Dr. Mike Ryan from the World Health Organization. Since we're talking about, you know, vaccinations and all that sort of thing, let's roll this from Dr. Mike Ryan, from the World Health Organization.
Essentially, it comes down to, on average, one person with this virus will infect more new people if they have the Delta strain, unless we prevent that. by continuing to practice the measures that reduce transmission, like physical distance and wearing masks and hand hygiene, and ensuring that we're not spending time in poorly ventilated spaces with lots of other people, and all of the other measures that we've spoken about again and again. There are no golden silver bullets here. There are no magical solutions. There's no magic dust. It's been the way for the last 18 months, and people keep asking for magic dust. It doesn't exist. The one magic dust we do have is vaccination. Problem is, we're not sprinting that evenly around the world, and we're working against ourselves. So from that perspective, Delta is a warning. It's a warning that this virus is evolving, but it's also a call to action that we need to move now before more dangerous variants emerge.
So there you have it. That's the view from the World Health Organization. And so Dr. Mike Ryan asserts that there's no magic dust. All right, so there's no magic dust. Oh, except for a vaccination. All right, well, that's interesting. And so that's not turning out to be magic dust, because we're now learning that you can be vaccinated and still transmit the virus, as well as come down with the virus. So it'll lessen your severity, I think, by about half or whatever. So if this is the magic dust to help us end lockdowns, how come if you're vaccinated you can still spread the virus as well as contract the virus? So there's no magic dust, asserts Dr. Mike Ryan. All right, well, whoever said that there was magic dust? But why do we think that that's the only treatment? There were many doctors at the very beginning of this, even though they were restricted from sharing their findings, that shared, for example, some of the safe medications out there, such as hydroxyquinine, the ivermectin, and also a nutritional regimen, all focused on stopping the rampant inflammation that is caused by SARS-CoV-2 when it hits the system as such. And so there's a lot of people that were trying to share the information there. It wasn't magic dust, it was treatments. So, this is the thing. There's a lot that you can do to stack the odds in your favor and just be better educated in terms of all of this. All right, so that's the stance there from the World Health Organization. I think that, let me see what else there is that I wanted to share with you. Just check the comments too. So a lot of people are fairly upset about this whole concept of the fact that, hang on, if vaccinations don't protect, what's the deal there? Why are we being told that it's the only way out of lockdowns? And this one shared here that, when their shot didn't protect them from infection, but they want you to take a shot to protect them from infection. And this is what's dividing. This is the sad thing that's dividing many people, that it's being those who truly do fear the virus are somewhat, being offensive to those who want choice in their own health and their own healthcare. And so they're believing that, they're being angry and not so much, and bullying towards those who have chosen not to vaccinate. And so I think, for all of us, I don't think that we should bully anyone for their choices in anything. And that's why we are for freedom in healthcare. So I think even if we play it towards the end, I think it's worthwhile, on that note, let's hear from our own Prime Minister here in Australia, Scott Morrison, and hear his comments about the fact that we really are making our own judgment call in all of this.
Well, we're all responsible for our own health. And when it comes to informed consent and giving consent to whatever treatment or procedure you may have or I may have, then I'm ultimately responsible for what people do in their health treatment to me. And there has been the opportunity for people to visit their GP, to have that consultation. The government has provided that and funded that. And the informed consent process provides the decision to the individual. That's the sort of country we live in. People make their own decisions about their own health and their own bodies. That's why we don't have mandatory vaccination in relation to the general population here, because people make their own decisions. And we encourage people to make those decisions. We make as much information available to them as possible. The vaccines, like any vaccine, with any vaccine, there are risks associated, and I won't go into each of the individual ones because I don't want to particularly draw attention to anyone. But we all understand that with any vaccine, there are risk factors, and they're enumerated and they're made available to people, and people make decisions about that. Well, I'll let the Chief Medical Officer and others speak to those because they have the details. I've been informed of those cases, and there have been other cases, and they're terribly tragic cases, like all of these are. And I feel for their families in those situations. And this is the terrible impact that pandemics have when you're responding to pandemics. But I do know that if vaccination rates, as we see, particularly for those who are older, are not where we want them to be, then people's lives are at risk.
So there you have it. So we are totally responsible for our own health. And what essentially we're being told too, because of the questioning there about, well, who's liable for these situations with adverse health effects from vaccination. And the Prime Minister is clearly saying that each individual person has chosen that path, and so they are responsible. So understand that vaccination, there is a no recourse for any health issues that come from that. So you are responsible. So that's why it is very important to be educated. And that's where it's also then sad that we have our same Prime Minister and all the premiers issuing, constant fear-mongering press conferences about the case rates. So let's really look at this. Like here in the Savvy team, we've been talking about some of the leading killers in the Western world for years. We regularly host, for example, what we call our Healthy Heart Action Plan, where we talk about what you can do to stack the odds in your favor and avoid the leading killer in the Western world, and that's heart disease. Now, heart disease is one of the comorbidities. So if you have heart disease, you're more likely to be susceptible to the viral situation. And so what are you doing right now to optimize your cardiovascular health, since it is an issue? Another one of the significant comorbidities is being obese or simply overweight. So what are you doing? We've been running weight management programs and teaching people the cornerstones of improving their diet for 16 years now, and improving their metabolic health. And so that is one of the primary issues, metabolic disease, one of the primary things that is causing those in the higher risk categories to be in higher risk. So, this is about improving your well-being. Now, okay, in the short term, that may mean that for you, in discussion with your healthcare provider, a vaccination is ideal for you. But we're being told that everybody needs to be vaccinated in order to help those people who haven't stopped smoking, who haven't changed their diet, who still are doing all the wrong things from a cardiovascular disease point of view. So I think that what's happening is we're not putting things into perspective. And I think it's worthwhile us looking at what other countries around the world have done as well in terms of lockdowns, masks, and all of that. And Sweden is a very great example. We're hearing things such as vitamin D being so important, and yet I would probably assert that vitamin D was not so important. Well, they would probably be low in vitamin D, and they didn't mandate. There was no masks, no lockdowns, and they fared pretty well. So I think there's a lot more going on here, and the typical scary news reports don't share the full story. And the general, if you're only getting your information through the general media, this will probably be locked down or limited through all its channels because of the fact that the narrative is being controlled. Okay, that's my opinion. If you have a different opinion, please share. Please share this. We wanted to share the lows and the laughs. That's why we're going backwards and forwards with opinions about you taking responsibility, but also sharing some of the humor and also sharing some of the information so that you can be savvy, astute, sharp, perceptive, and informed. All right, so let's just see whether I can bring on some of these comments in here. So Gwen shared from Facebook there that I told my doctor that I'm on the fence about the vaccinations, and she was fine with that, knowing her health issues. That's a really important point. There are some health issues that make people more susceptible to the issues with vaccinations, like blood clots, for example. And so there are people, I was just listening to a video that I don't have to share with you, I don't believe, but a video of a nurse that being interviewed saying that she'd prefer to lose her job than be forced to have the vaccination based on the fact that it could do damage to her personal health, knowing her past issues and those sorts of things. And so, since she was very strong on her stance, she said she's had a whole bunch of other job offers from people from organizations that want that sort of a strong viewpoint, working with them. So thanks, Gwen, for sharing that. Okay. So, yes, so hi, Emma. Great to have you on board. So, yes, so where are we at now? So again, if you have any thoughts, things to share, fun images, then do let me know. I don't think I'll be able to share them directly. I'll have to see how we go with that. All right, so heaps more to share with you. Of course, right now in much of the country, we're told that we can only go out for essential services, and so we're generally in lockdown, and we must wear a mask. And so I'll cover in a moment how Sweden didn't do either of those and share a video with you. It's a bit on the longer side, but I think education is important. But when you're going out shopping, we have some humor from Coles here. Calm down. I'm not sure how true this is, but let's just say it is, whether they actually had this sign or not. But Coles is just asking you to wear a mask. You can still wear your pajamas and slippers while continuing to leave your bras and teeth at home. Thanks for your cooperation. And I guess the thing is that when we slop out of home in our typical, at-home gear and go shopping, we may not be as all dolled up to the nine as we may have been in the past. So there's also, exercise. Getting out and exercising can be a little bit of a challenge when we're in lockdown here, and there are restrictions on that, etc. And so, we've got to socially distance, and we've got to, right now here in this region of the world, we can only exercise within 10 k's of our home. But, sometimes social distancing can be really complicated here. So here's a swimming pool. When the pool reopens, due to social distancing rules, there will be no water in lanes 1, 3, and 5. So, okay. So, I'm not sure how that's going to work. No swimming in lanes 1, 3, and 5, or what are they going to do with the water? Who knows? So, look, and so what we might do is go check out another video, and I guess right now might be a good time to look at lockdowns and who makes these decisions about all this, and we'll share a bit of humor here. So this one's from Jimmy Reese and his Facebook page. I think that you'll find this funny. This was from last year, actually, when we were dealing with all these, I think, or earlier this year when we're dealing with lockdowns, etc. So definitely go support him on his Facebook page. I think you'll find this one good. So this is who decides on the lockdown and the social distancing rules. Let's roll that.
So here's one. Can I stay at a caravan park with 200 other caravans?
Absolutely, Jason, you can do that. Go for your life.
Oh, that's great. Well, can a couple of my friends park their caravans in my backyard? And we can have like a mini holiday because of all the border closures. We'll stay local.
No, Jason. There'll be too many people in your home.
200 caravans is okay, but not a few. Okay, that's fine. Can I play backyard cricket with my mates in my backyard?
How many people, Jason?
16?
No, Jason, that's too many.
Too many. Okay. Well, can I go to the cricket and watch 22 men play cricket with 20,000 supporters watching along?
Yes, of course you can do that. Don't be stupid, Jason.
Right. Okay. Can I go to New South Wales?
Yes, you can go to New South Wales whenever you want.
Great. Or can I leave New South Wales?
No, because no one will let you in.
Okay. Can I book a table of 20 at a restaurant?
Yes, Jason, you can absolutely do that.
Awesome. Fantastic. Can I have a dinner party with 20 people at home?
No, Jason, that's irresponsible and will be putting the public health in jeopardy. No.
Yeah, of course. Sorry. Just a few questions regarding masks. Do I wear a mask in a shopping centre?
Yes, Jason, of course you do.
Right, but there is a lot of space. You could probably social distance. What about a cafe?
Oh, you don't have to wear it in a cafe. Don't be stupid.
What if I go to the cinema?
You must wear a mask in the cinema. It's a matter of public health. What are you, stupid? Do you want to infect the whole country? In the cinema, you wear a mask.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Wait, Jason. Did you order popcorn?
Yeah, of course. What's a movie without popcorn, hey?
Well, then that's fine. You can eat your popcorn for the whole movie with your mask off.
Right, okay, so when I'm eating, I don't have to wear a mask.
That is correct, Jason.
So do I have to wear a mask on a plane?
Yes.
But if I'm eating?
No.
In a gym?
Yes, Jason.
If I'm exerting myself?
No.
So all of the places I have to wear a mask, if I'm eating, it's fine.
Must be safe at all times, Jason. Unless you're eating, because people have to eat. And drinking. You don't have to wear a mask if you're having a drink.
So you never wear a mask then?
What did you say, Jason?
Nothing. What about at a concert? A human nature concert?
Well, Jason, you have to sit down in your seat. And there's no dancing. Unless you want to dance in your seat. Then you can dance.
Oh, okay. So I can sing along to the tunes from my seat as well?
Oh, Jason, there'll be no singing. That spreads germs, Jason.
Oh, okay. What about the guys on stage?
Of course they're singing, Jason. They're singers, you idiot.
Okay. Because it's very noisy at a concert like that, can I yell loudly to my friends?
Don't see a problem with that at all, Jason.
Right, so no singing, but yelling loudly is fine. Okay, right.
Would there be anything else, Jason?
Oh, one more thing. Just if you're sick, what do you do if you're feeling a bit sick?
Jason. If you have any symptoms at all, you stay at home. You don't go to work and you don't leave your house. But you also need to go and get a test. And line up for 4 hours with lots of other people trying to get a test. Coughing and spluttering in the queue. Do that. It's a matter of public health, Jason. I'm going home. Goodbye.
So there you have it. And look, when we look at the current lockdown rules and everything, I really personally don't believe that going out to get a test is an essential service, an essential reason to go out. My opinion. That is not the that is not the regulations. And so if you do have symptoms, then you have to go and get a test. That is the regulations. It doesn't make any logical sense as depicted in that particular little skit there. Because, like, it's interesting that I saw this recently. This was sent to us about healthcare workers. That volunteers in their full protective gear saying volunteers who don't believe in COVID are wanted. And so activities include transfer of patients, transfer of the dead, general cleaning of the COVID ward, and personal care of COVID patients. It won't be a problem that you don't get personal protective equipment as you don't believe they are necessary. Signed, healthcare workers. Now, obviously this is, a bit of humor there, because there are, I talked about all opinions exist on a spectrum. There's no yes or no, right or wrong, up or down, whatever. It exists on a spectrum. And so I guess there are people out there that just don't believe in COVID at all. I don't believe that there is a virus, etc. And so, putting that aside though, that's what this is referring to. If you don't believe in it, then you won't need any personal protective equipment. But I mean, that's a little bit ludicrous. So this is, again, these things are dividing people, I believe. So the simple fact of the matter is, now I don't believe for me that the flu is dangerous. But if everybody in a home has the flu, then I'm not going to choose to go there and be exposed if possible. So I don't want to go where we already know that you could get exposed. So even that, my sister had said, I was going to swing by, and she said, well, we've all been sick. And then she said, we've all been tested, and it's not COVID, but we've all been sick. So we've got something. And so she said, so come at your own risk. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? So I did go without my personal protective equipment, and I was fine. But it did make me think, do I really want to get sick right now? And so that's the thing. So this, I believe, is a little bit stupid, because nobody willingly wants to expose themselves to something that could make them feel unwell and sick, etc. Well, then again, people do drink to excess and have a hangover. So, but I digress. So that's exposing yourself to something that will make you feel unwell. But anyway, so I do think that, okay, so we're going to go out and line up with people who have symptoms, and so they're going out to get tested. I wonder, and what, the contact tracing hasn't found any transmission from those sites? Rather unique, I would say. So anyhow, it is part of the general health requirement that you go and get tested if you do have symptoms. So on that, let's look at, let's just look at the next thing I wanted to share with you. What should we look at next? Let's actually look at this from a perspective. So I was just talking about flu, and recently being winter here in this region of the world right now, most years we tend to have a winter wellness action plan. We here in our organization, we have winter wellness action plans really to help people to optimize their well-being through the winter period, and stack the odds in their favor about not catching things that are going on, or at least knowing the healthy action steps to take when they do get the dreaded lurgy or whatever. And so I was just editing a session from 2019, and thinking, instead of doing a live session this year, we'll reshare that, and it will be a really interesting thing, because everything's so very different right now because of COVID. And so 2019 we hadn't seen any of this yet, so that was a normal season, but it actually was a very virulent flu season, and so it significantly virulent flu season back in 2019. So it made me think, all right, let's look at this from, start to think about things from that perspective. And I do have something that I'd like to share regarding those stats. I just don't happen to have it right in front of me. So what I might do is see whether we can play a video while no, I won't be able to bring that up at the same time. So bear with me, and we'll find this that I was going to share with you. Okay, so again, love to hear your thoughts. Let us know in the comments what you've been thinking about all of this, or share if you've got a link that you wanted to share with everybody here in the community. Love to see that too. I think we've got it here. Okay, looks like this is. Let's just go. We'll take a look at my slide, my other screen over here. So what we have here is talking about the 2019 flu season, and so in 2019 Australia's health system has had to face one of the worst flu seasons on record. The number of reported flu cases for 2019 has climbed over 300,000, and at the time of writing 80% higher than 2018. So the experts described, and what was it, 17% higher than 2017, which described by experts as the worst ever. So sadly, this year at least 812 people have died from the flu, an increase from 64 people in 2018 and up from at least 804 in 2018, whilst almost 4,000 people have been hospitalised. So that was 2019, the worst flu season ever. No daily press reports. 812 people died in that short space of time. No lockdowns, no crazy mandatory mask wearing or any of that sort of thing for that amount of deaths. So if we go and take a look now at the if we can see the current, just try to find the current stats for I don't have it on this particular thing, but I think we're at around about, does anyone have the stat? I think I've got some stats here from at least the beginning of the year. So let's use that as an example until I find maybe the actual data from from the Bureau of Statistics. So this was based on the Bureau of Statistics right here, just looking at the beginning of the year. And so total deaths Australia-wide, dealing with the first 3 months of the year. So we talked about before that the top leading killer in the Western world is heart disease, and so that killed over 3,000 people at the beginning of this year. Cerebrovascular diseases, stroke, etc., over 2,000. Respiratory disease, not COVID related, nearly 3,000. Chronic lower respiratory disease, 1,500 or more. Influenza and pneumonia, 415. Cancer, 11,000. Diabetes, over 1,000. Dementia, over 3,000. And other unknown causes. And just in that space of time, when we compare that to how many actually died from COVID-related deaths, that was 1. Now, that is from looking at the Bureau of Statistics. And even if we were to say, all right, well, let's change that and make that, so Linda's sharing here so far, that there was, in the past 18 months, a total of 924 deaths attributed to COVID-19. And so just in this, that's over 18 months. And in 2019, there were over 800 people that died in the 6 months of the flu season. And so are we really dealing with a pandemic? And by the way, they were all, that was still with relatively high vaccination rates for flu and all of that sort of thing, and without all of the distancing. Now, some would say, okay, imagine what would have been like if we hadn't locked down. Okay, well, that's a valid point, and so that's why I really wanted to look for these statistics and share them with you. So let me see whether I can find them. Okay. All right, you have just joined us recently. It's Corey Sievers here with the Savvy team, and here we are on our lockdown live. We're going to talk about some things to educate you on, put things into perspective, but also share some fun and laughs together as well. All right, here we go. No. Oh, here we go. Yes, we have it here. Okay, so this was from an ABC article. Yeah, so Linda just saying here before that about the 812. Oh, that's right. Anyway, I don't have the facts and figures here, but we just shared them. Around 800 deaths from flu in 2019 without all the media hysteria and all that sort of thing, and that was over 6 months, I believe, and that's as compared to 924 deaths in Australia across 18 months from COVID. So we could definitely assert that 2019 flu season was just as bad as what we're dealing with now. And so, but let's look at what has happened with the flu. So here is an ABC news site saying flu deaths drop in Australia as coronavirus restrictions save hundreds of lives. So the article asserts that it's the restrictions that dropped the flu deaths to zero. Really? Okay. Really? So let's take a look at that right now. So here we are on that article that was from the ABC. See whether I can zoom in just a little bit more for you. Okay, so we're looking at flu, this graph right here. Flu deaths 2019 is this line. You can see it obviously increasing into July, and I don't know whether I can access the rest of it, but there we have it up to there, the flu deaths increasing. And yet this is the flu deaths in 2020. And as soon as the COVID comes along and we lock down, disappears to next to nothing. So what? The flu virus just disappeared off the face of the earth suddenly, and yet the the infection rate for COVID went up. Okay, all right. Notified cases of laboratory confirmed influenza disappeared somehow in 2020 compared to 2019. The flu just disappeared off the face of the earth. Well, some call for that being that the PCR testing and the general testing is flawed. I won't argue and won't go into that. That's up to you to decide. Is the testing flawed? Lots of experts have spoken out. I've read research articles talking about the fact that it is flawed. So again, a lot of people that have asked questions from our community and the general public have sort of said, yeah, but I've heard that the science said. Well, when you say I've heard that the science says, where did you find out about that? If you only heard it through a media outlet or even a video that's been shared from a media outlet on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, are you getting the full story? I want you to make up your own mind there. What, did the flu virus just disappear? Look at the article. Just look at the article. And make an informed decision. What happened to the flu? Just gone, just like that. But anyway, regardless of that, the flu and any other virus for that matter attacks those with a weakened immune system. That's why those with comorbidities have had the biggest trouble. Being older, being overweight, having heart disease, having lung disease of some sort, having some inflammatory condition that amplifies the impact of the cytokine storm that is what actually essentially kills you with this whole virus. Its impact on the respiratory system. So it's not the virus per se, because we're surrounded by millions of viruses etc. So that's my understanding. I'm no scientist, I'm not an epidemiologist, I'm not a biologist, and I am not a doctor, and I do not want to be, but I am somebody that likes to stay informed and read the research papers, as difficult as it may be. And when I see the same thing being said over and over again through the media, I do get a little bit sus. Okay, I do get a little bit sus. But that is my personal opinion. I am entitled to my personal opinion. At the moment, we have a country, and our Prime Minister Scott Morrison said that we have freedom of choice in healthcare. We also are in a country that has freedom of speech, so I can share my opinion. It is only my opinion. I'm not even speaking on behalf of the Savvy team as an organization. As I said, in our organization, we believe in personal responsibility and being educated and freedom of choice in healthcare. So it is your choice. Me, I might have a little bit more of a slant towards avoiding medication. I've been damaged by medication before that I chose to take, but it was my responsibility. I have ongoing issues from that because I followed the advice of my specialist and was therefore damaged. Vaccines have a no recourse legality around them, so it is totally your choice, and informed consent is very, very important. And so that is a challenge when we deal with the scaremongering that is going on with press conferences daily. I have to wonder what on earth the politicians did before this, because all they seem to do is have meetings on COVID every day, like as if there's nothing else to do to run the country. Anyway, I digress and I'll get off my soapbox there. Oh dear. So well, we might go over and talk about some of the things in Europe. Europe is a little bit interesting because right now I think France is up in arms because they're bringing in mandated passports and in essence a vaccine passport of sorts. But else from over in Belgium said to concur, same sort of madness over here in Belgium. It makes no sense at all. It's summer over here, and so we're officially less restricted. But I'm preparing for winter of utter madness because lots of people got vaccinated. Nobody knows how they're going to react from the wild variant of the virus. So it's really shocking. So let's take a look at a video. This is a bit of a more of an educational video, and I do think it's worthwhile you knowing this. And so this is by Ivor Cummins, who has done a lot of research. I've followed him a little bit as a result of the constant education we do in the area of cardiovascular disease, and his theories concurred with ours, and so we've shared a number of his materials with our community. And so he's really looked as a past engineer. He's good at crunching numbers, and he has looked at the real rates and looked over there where he comes from Europe. And so I think it's worthwhile having at least that idea of things here in Australia as well. So let's roll a video from him talking about what's going on with the real rates of disease, not disease, but infection rates, and look a little bit of what's going on in Sweden.
Sunday the 6th of June, and possibly the most important COVID video you will ever see. This is all government data from Sweden and Ireland. It's actual data. I'll put the links below. So this is not censorable in anything but perhaps a 1984-like world. So who got the science correct? We had Ferguson in Imperial College London, which is massively funded by pharma and pharma interests, predicted around 90,000 deaths for Sweden with no real controls. You can argue about the number, but it's in the many, many tens of thousands, even with distancing. Okay? What about Tegnell? He said he could be judged around this time of 2021, and he can. So what actually happened with no lockdowns and no masks even, right through 2 seasons? Let's take a look. Here's the actual data from Professor Isle Shire, and I'll put the link below to his article on this. And we're wondering what actually happened. But first we look at the trend line over many, many years in Sweden. And we note that we must use October to September period. You cannot split at December. That's an unnatural year. It doesn't encompass flu seasons. So we see the trend is pretty steady with bobbing up and down. But 2019 is notably low, and that would have left a lot of susceptible people to sadly be taken in the following flu season. So let's see what happened. Watch the birdie here. Reality is down here, plus around 364 per million. As you can see, these kind of cancel out almost. So this is reality versus what pharma told us would happen. And what was told to us is what drove all of the lockdowns. And remember, Sweden did this with no real lockdowns, just normal WHO 2019 guidelines for pandemics, which were correct all along. And they also did this with no masks. We'll zoom in a little and here are the actual numbers. You can see for 2020 flu season period, plus 364. And 19 was minus 300. And these are deaths per million, the only data you can ever use to judge pandemic impact. And it agrees entirely with Professor Michael Levitt's data from his Stanford team. Here you can see the dotted line of generally expected. You'll notice that many periods of 2020-21, the death rates were well below expected. This is essentially dry tinder, as the phrase goes. And during the two seasonal surges, there was excess death. But the number of excess death roughly is around 300 per million. Note also that Sweden's second wave that was much touted in the media is actually very minor, and the deficit here gets bigger in the following few weeks. This is up to only early May. So really their second wave was very small in excess death for all the case hysteria you saw around Sweden here. And Sweden also politically and under international pressure had to do mock lockdown type interventions. It had to be done for appearance's sake. But here's the reality. I did a video a short while ago and it showed Ireland's figures, which are similar to the average for Europe. What's the real world risk? You need to know real world risk from this problem. So I took the deaths with SARS-CoV-2 positive PCR from government sources, non-censorable this. I took the census data, non-censorable, and I worked out for below 70s as a large group, there were 600 with positive PCR and 4.4 million approx, 0.014%. And that's a 1 in 7,500 risk for the under 70s generally. And that's with positive PCR. From American data, it's approximately the risk from death from poisoning or ingestion of gases. We then look at the under 50s as a group, 70 dying and 3.4 million, 0.002% risk of death with a positive PCR. 1 in 50,000 risk approximately for the under 50s, which from US data is approximately the death from fire or smoke inhalation. We look at the under 25 years as a group. There's a lot of talk about them now and about mass medication. Well, let's see what their risk really was over 2 full seasons and over a year of massive spread. 6 in 1.65 million, 0.00036% actual real world risk. That's a 1 in 275,000 risk for the under 25s with positive PCR. And this is around half the risk of death from falling downstairs or off stepladders. And remember a key point, that this data covers overwhelmingly people who had many comorbidities and other serious issues. So the risks will be vastly lower than these for people who are actually healthy. 50 to 60 group, right? 50 to 60 years old, there were 130 dying in 600,000 people approximately, 0.022% risk. That's a 1 in 5,000 risk for the 50 to 60 year olds. And that's death with a positive PCR, with COVID. But note again that the real world risk for this group is going to be massively lower if the person in question is healthy, i.e. not comorbid. So these are the real world risks after over a year, Massive spread because we saw over 25% PCR positivity in the sampling in both seasons. So there was enormous spread. And yet this is the real world risk. We'll finish with official government death registrations, and we'll notice that 2020 is no different really than prior years. So remember the 4,800 deaths from COVID, supposedly? Where are they? Because the actual CSO figures show no excess at all. Well, we'll show you that the COVID deaths make up a big chunk of the normal existing deaths that would be expected. So that's why there's no excess death, because all of the with COVID deaths are simply part of a death rate overall that in its totality is pretty much normal. So hopefully it's helped you understand the actual.
So there you have it, and if you there's Ivor's work crunching some of the numbers, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But do look him up. He goes by the name the Fat Emperor, is fat as much as as far as his blog goes and etc. But Ivor, Ivor Cummins, and so good information there. Now. So in essence, what he's done from crunching the numbers, at least over there, which let's face it, is going to be exactly the same as we saw depicted by the flu graph here in Australia, that the general, if this was indeed a pandemic, we should see excess deaths. So we should see a higher than normal amount of deaths in any given year. And we haven't seen that. And that's what he has asserted and found in crunching the numbers right there. So if you have just joined us, it's Corey Sievers here. We are doing our lockdown live here, from lows to laughs, from fears to freedom. We want to hear your thoughts on this particular matter. So we've been sharing some fun. We've been sharing some statistics. We've been sharing some important information to keep you and help you be informed, be savvy, so to speak, astute, sharp, perceptive and informed. And again, please know that this is not medical advice. You do need to take responsibility for your own well-being and of course discuss any issues with your healthcare provider. So what I'd like to do is break that up a bit and have a little bit more fun right now. And I'd like to think about this. We're being encouraged. I guess this is thought-provoking, but a little bit of a fun look at things too. Before we look at this video, I guess a bit in your face way of looking at the fact that everyone's being encouraged to get vaccinated is this shared from one of our community members. Imagine if there were a 99.7% chance that you would not get cancer, but you were forced to get chemo just in case. So really, really powerful thought there, really just to think about that, okay? So because the true results, the true statistics are that Ivor just shared is that most people, let's just round it right down to 99% of people will be just fine. And those who won't, we're not being nasty there, but they already have comorbidity, so they've already let their health degenerate. So, and it hasn't been proven that vaccination will stop them from getting it, even if it's rampant vaccination. So we've got to think about what's really, what really is the best for each of us individually. And we have the choice for our own health and well-being. So looking at that from a humorous point of view, let's take it away from the body and think about getting our car serviced, and how this might look if we were just getting our car serviced. Let's roll this clip.
Are you alright, mate? I've got to pick up my car. Oh, hey, how you doing, buddy? Yeah, she's purring like a kitten. Come on, let's go outside. There she is. Yeah, man, thanks for that. How much oil, yeah? Oh, don't worry about that for now. Let's go have a word with you over here. Okay. Now, you've got a great car here. Got a really good system. What I would say though, there's a 99.9% chance that your car will be fine. But But what I do recommend is servicing your engine with this new experimental oil technology here that could ruin your engine. But
Nah, I'm alright still.
you sure? I mean, 0.1% is looking a bit scary, don't you think? You know, we've had a lot of cars come into the shop this month. Problems.
Well, you know, if you don't look after your car, it breaks down. That's life, isn't it?
Come on, it'll be fine.
Okay, so if the engine gets ruined, you're liable, right?
No.
You know what, the risk to reward ratio ain't sounded too good, so I'm gonna pass on this one. But thanks for the offer, though.
You want a donut? Huh?
What?
Come on, every free oil shot, get a free donut. Huh? What you want? You want burger? Fries? Huh? You want it? I got it. Huh? Come on. What you want? Lotto ticket? Weed? Huh? Come on, just take it. Come on, take this stuff.
No, man.
What are you, anti-oil?
Anti-oil. By the information you just gave me, I'm choosing not to have it. And by the sounds of it, I don't need it.
Listen, you goddamn maggot. You don't take this oil, I'll make sure you never drive again. You understand me? The choice is yours.
That ain't a choice. That's coercion.
You can't run from it, Daryl. Huh? Everybody's gonna have to take the oil if you want to drive. You understand me? We can't run from it, Daryl.
So sometimes humor does help us to internalize, you know, choices that we have to make. And, you know, it's an interesting one when we really put it in terms of that. So the question comes down to, what does it take to look after? Like we talked about in that particular skit, it was, you know, if you look after your car, then it'll serve you. Well, if you look after your body, it will serve you too. So what does that entail? What does looking after your body actually entail? How do you reduce your risk? What are these comorbidities all about? Well, I talked about cardiovascular disease and lung disease and all these other things that make people more susceptible, and the statistics and the medical evidence shows that those people on certain medications are more susceptible. But UK cardiologist Dr. Asim Malhotra actually looked at, well, what is the primary thing, the primary comorbidity here that is causing people to be more susceptible? And if we know the primary comorbidity, we can actually take control. Each one of us individually can take control of our wellness and actually reduce our risk. Whether we choose to get vaccinated or not isn't the point. We can reduce our risk of all-cause mortality by doing this particular action step. So before we listen to that, let's listen to that. Let's go and listen to Asim Malhotra talking about the primary thing that we can do to improve our well-being and avoid becoming a victim.
Their sickest patients are those under 60 who are obese. Well, one of the doctors making those warnings is Asim Malhotra, a consultant cardiologist from London, who joins us live, as you can see. Thank you so much for being here with me. So tell me, in terms of what you've seen, how much of a difference does obese actually make it in terms of the fatality figures that we're seeing?
Well, it's a huge problem, actually. So looking and having analysed all the data, looking at data from the CDC, from Centers of Disease Control, it appears that obesity, and more specifically diseases associated with a metabolic syndrome, which I'll explain in a second, are associated with a 10-fold increase in mortality. We know obesity alone in the under 60s is the single biggest risk factor. But I think what's really important to highlight here is what is the root cause of that. Now, prior to COVID-19, it is well known, it's well established in the medical literature that poor diet is responsible globally for more disease and death than physical inactivity, smoking, and alcohol combined. Specifically, 11 million deaths a year globally are attributed specifically to poor diet. Now, when one looks at what's happened with COVID-19, it's very clear that the biggest risk factor for all of these problems, obesity and these conditions such as type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure leading to heart disease, are all rooted in poor diet. Now, what I have emphasized, and I wrote about this in the Telegraph newspaper today in an article that got mentioned and featured on the front page, is that actually the time is now for government and Public Health England to be telling the public to change their diet. And the reason for that is that we know that, and this is something I see with my patients all the time, many clinicians around the country are doing this as part of a lifestyle prescription. You can reverse many of these conditions, send them into remission, certainly massively improve those risk factors within the space of just a few weeks of people cutting out the biggest sort of problem in our diet at the moment.
Well, I was going to ask you about that moving forward, and I'll come back to that in a moment or two, but I mean, that line that you just said there of a tenfold increase in mortality rates is a shocking figure. Is that what you're seeing globally, internationally, not just here in the UK? And do you know medically why it would be so high?
Yeah, it's very good question. So all of the data from CDC has identified this tenfold increased risk with these conditions like type 2 diabetes and the ones we've mentioned earlier, which again are rooted in poor diet. So the reason for that, which is a very good question for you to ask, is twofold. One is excess body fat, and we know this from previous flu data. Excess body fat is thought to cause a dysregulated immune system. In other words, the immune system doesn't function optimally, and when you get infections like the flu, you're more likely to die from conditions like acute, respiratory distress syndrome, which is what kills people with COVID-19. So that's one of the mechanisms. The other mechanism is that if you eat too much ultra-processed food, even if you're normal weight, by the way, so this affects people even with normal weight, then your body is chronically getting mildly damaged, and that results in a process called chronic inflammation. Now, it appears that when you have an acute infection on top of that from COVID-19, the combination of the excess body fat and the chronic inflammation seems to be particularly detrimental.
And I take it from the tail end of your first answer that you don't think it's too late for individuals to change their behaviour and not too late for the government also to pivot in terms of advice.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right there. So I see with my own patients, and this is well established in the literature, that you can reverse these risk factors within a few weeks of just cutting out ultra-processed food, starch and sugary foods in particular. People will lose weight, but even if they don't lose weight, they're improving their health markers quite dramatically. That's the first thing. The second thing is you're absolutely right. Actually, what should be coming from the government now, they've been very effective in getting people to stay home with the message about stay at home, protect the NHS and save lives. I think actually we need to add on to that, eat real food, protect the NHS and save lives. But also, as well as individuals improving, what really needs to happen is we need to tackle the root cause of this poor diet, which is the food environment. I mean, more than 50% of the British diet now is ultra-processed foods, essentially mass-packaged foods. It's nutrient deficient, that is high in unhealthy oils, sugar and starch, and is now more than 50% of the diet. It's actually such a problem that it's even infiltrated our hospitals. So 75% of foods purchased in hospitals are unhealthy, these sorts of foods. And it's no surprise that, unfortunately, NHS workers are also afflicted with diet-related disease as well.
Aseem Malhotra, we've run out of time, but thanks so much for your time. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you're watching on YouTube...
So there you have it. Again, here is a cardiologist expressing how important it is for you to change your diet and how changing your diet right now can even improve your outcomes very quickly, because it can reduce put some of these other diseases into remission as such, like diabetes and the like, and at least even losing weight, because that will reduce your inflammatory markers, etc. We've seen that so much when community members do a detox program and aim to lose weight and eat a healthier diet, such as our Eat Savvy approach. They start to move in the right direction. And so to know from here's a well-respected cardiologist to say that this will also reduce really the incidences of infection and complications with COVID-19. So in summary, we tend to assert pretty much that there are, if you think about the Pareto principle, that's the 80-20 rule. We assert that there are only 3 Pareto principle dietary choices or dietary changes that you can make that will have a huge impact. Get rid of the sugars of all kinds, get rid of all grains, and get rid of inflammatory vegetable oils. And that in essence, is packaged food. And that's what Dr. Malhotra was talking about right there. So it's interesting that when I was saying that, unfortunately all of this is dividing the nation, and people who are choosing not to get a vaccine are being labelled as tinfoil crazies and all that sort of thing. And those who are choosing to get the vaccine and want to get on with things, and if 80% vaccination rate is our only way out, why doesn't everybody just do it? Because many of those people, sadly, aren't taking control of their well-being, so they're hoping that the system will just take care of things. Whereas, as I shared before, our Prime Minister said that we are each responsible for our own well-being, and we live in a healthcare system here in Australia where we are responsible, and it is our job to make an informed choice about our own healthcare, and we do have that freedom, and that was from Prime Minister Scott Morrison. We can play that again in just a moment. I'll just look to see whether there's any other things that I wanted to share in terms of what we'll talk about here now is, unfortunately, the risk before, or the believed risk. So you saw the video there before from Sweden and the rate there, and then looking at the general rate of infection that Ivor Cummins was looking at. And he found that, crunching the numbers, that you're more likely, looking across the board, even if you're in high risk, you're more likely to get poisoned than die from COVID-19. If let's say that you go and get a positive test, a positive PCR test, you're still more likely to die from poisoning, statistically, than you are from COVID-19. He said that you're more likely to die in a fire or from smoke inhalation than COVID-19. He said you're more likely to fall down the stairs and die than you are from COVID-19. So let's put that into real risk. We're being told, based on the reports on the media, that this is scary and deadly. And it just is not they're not the facts. They're not the facts. So research company True North tested the perceptions based on all of this fear-mongering. The perceptions of the virus, and found that 2/3 of respondents, so 67% of people surveyed, believed that the Delta strain of the virus was more contagious and more deadly. Okay, the reality is, so 67% of people believed it was more contagious and more deadly. The reality is that it is more contagious but less deadly. So the fear-mongering worked to scare people. If that's the government's agenda, then it worked, didn't it? The survey also asked respondents to rate their chances. This is the scary thing, and this is what I want you to think about. The True North tested the perceptions of people in a survey. The survey asked respondents to rate their chances of dying if they were infected with the Delta variant. And respondents rated older people rated it slightly higher and younger a little bit lower. But the average was that 38% of people thought that they would die if they contracted the Delta variant of the virus. 38% of people thought that they would die. And yet you're more likely to be burnt to death, you're more likely to fall down the stairs and die, and you're more likely to whatever else Ivor was sharing. The risk is minuscule, and that's if you already test positive. So, what they found out that 38% is astonishing. That's an extreme case. That would be like Ebola virus with a very high death rate, not just a high infection rate. So, as True North found out, the intensity of the threat is much lower than what the actual population thinks. And this is where I can see the division that's happening there. Those who read the research like this and understand that it's not as scary as we're being told, and those who just buy the story from the media. So another one, I didn't have it here to share, but someone shared with me, how do you get over the virus? Cut the cord off your TV. so that you're not watching that all the time. So, you know, the chances are very, very low of you dying, even with a positive PCR test. Now, yeah, your chances of dying are higher percentage-wise if you have some of the comorbidities, of course. And so it's worthwhile you making those decisions based on your situation. Okay? So the issue here is that we're all being, you know, businesses are being destroyed. Like, you know, people's mental health is suffering. And, you know, as I was when we weren't locked down, I was in the gym and having a conversation with a guy who transports deceased bodies, and he said that he has not yet once come across a COVID death in his travels. Now, that's not to say that we haven't had, of course, those 924 deaths to date, but he said that he personally has not come across one. But he said he has seen a significant spike in suicide deaths, younger, and also he said getting younger and younger and younger. So, you know, the mental health effect of all of this scaremongering and impact on jobs and all that sort of thing is having a very, very, very harmful effect on many, many people, and a far more harmful effect than the actual virus itself. So be informed, be savvy, be aware, and really make the choices about what is best for you. So we might lighten the load a little bit there and share another bit from Jimmy Reese. I thought that this was funny. This was part 2 of him talking about lockdowns. So it helps you to really put things into perspective that some of this is just craziness. So let's have a look at that.
Sir, I'm catching a plane from Melbourne to Perth. Can I do that? As long as you meet the requirements, Jason, you can go. And you'll have to quarantine in a hotel for 14 days when you get there. Okay?
Yep, right, I knew that. Yep.
Oh, and Jason, the plane's gonna pick some people up from Adelaide on the way.
Oh, okay. Will they have to quarantine for 14 days when they get there too?
No, Jason! They're from South Australia. They can do what they want.
My kids just joined the singing group at school.
Jason, you know how I feel about singing. If you're joining a singing group, no more than 6 people. And you must socially distance when you're singing. Keep everyone safe.
Okay, can my kid also play football?
Of course that's fine, Jason. What are you, stupid? 36 players can run around an AFL ground playing footy, sharing a ball. That's fine. As long as they don't sing the song at the end, that'd be stupid.
What about weddings?
Don't let there be any hugging at the wedding, Jason. No hugging.
Kissing?
No kissing. The bride and groom can kiss once and that's it.
Dancing?
No. Only 20 people can dance at a time. You have to take it in turns.
Singing? Oh, you just spat on me.
No.
Can I have a band?
Yes, you can have a band.
Oh, phew.
No trumpets. Or saxophones.
Okay, a cake?
Of course you can have a cake, Jason.
Oh, awesome.
But you're not allowed to eat it.
I can't eat the cake on display, but this cake's on display at my local market all the time.
What's your point?
All right, what about the airport?
When you're checking in, Jason, you must socially distance yourself by standing on the little stickers on the floor.
Okay, great, but what about on the plane?
Well, you'll be crammed in, Jason, like a normal plane, 3 centimetres away from everyone else. But you must wear a mask, unless you're drinking, like me.
Okay, cool. And what about when I'm picking up my luggage?
Use your common sense, Jason. Stand as far away as possible from other people as you can.
Okay.
And we're going to shove all the bags from 7 other flights on the same carousel.
And can you just remind me how to cough and sneeze again?
Into your elbow, Jason, like this.
Am I allowed to shake people's hands?
No, Jason! Use your elbow!
Can I have 16 people at my home?
No!
Can I take 99 friends to a brothel?
Yes!
If I live near the border, can I cross the border without having to quarantine?
Yes, Jason! It's called a border bubble. What are you, stupid?
Okay, but can people from outside the bubble visit me on their side of the border?
Jason, it's simple. If you live near the border, you can cross the border, as long as you stay in the little bubble that's set up. And people from outside the bubble can visit you inside the bubble from their side of the border. And if you go back home to your side of the border, You can go anywhere, and people can visit you from that side of the border too.
Right, so a whole bunch of people could come to close to the border and meet you on that side of the border and then go home. They're not allowed to cross the border, but you can cross the border, taking it over the border, and then you can meet 100 people on that side of the border.
Jason, you're talking like an idiot and making it sound stupid. Now give me an elbow, I'm getting out of here.
Well, someone's got to make up the rules and you have to follow them, right? They don't have to make logical sense, but that's what we have to do. So follow the guidelines. We're currently in lockdown now. The best that you can do is, not everywhere's in lockdown, of course, but we are in this particular region where I'm broadcasting from and in many parts of the country. You just got to do the best that you can to maintain your mental state. And you got to laugh, and you really are in a position where it's important to make your own personal choice and think about this logically for yourself. Okay, so I did find this particular clip quite funny, and it's about it's about spreading the virus. So let's roll this and have a little bit of fun. It's more on audio, but it's about spreading with your speech, spreading the virus with your speech.
Good evening. As COVID-19 infections remain high at home and around the world, scientists have found that the virus is being spread not only by coughs, but also by people talking to each other.
Yeah.
Studies show that consonants project the virus for much greater distances than vowels.
That's true.
And certain consonants, the so-called plosive sounds, are worst of all.
Worst of all. You get on
Each
us all the
time
time
a
for
person makes the sound p, t, or k,
Okay.
they can project the virus up to 3 times further than when they use softer consonants, such as f.
There's a high school project that found that out.
Based on this new evidence, the government is introducing new rules in stages to make people's speech less dangerous and slow the spread of COVID-19.
I knew this was coming.
Yeah.
Announcing the new rules, Health Secretary Matt Hancock said, during the first stage, or Tier 1, the consonant p will be banned and must always be replaced with the softer sound f.
Yes.
Anyone speaking to other people in a public place will have to stop using the plosive sound. Failure to do so could lead to a fine or even prison. The whole population, even members of Parliament, will all have to play their part in this. After a period of a few weeks, we will move to Tier 2. Tier 1 rules will continue to apply. In addition, the sound t will be banned and must be replaced by the sound n.
No.
Although this may cause some initial confusion, for example, Nietzsche's in schools will face challenges when Nietzscheing the Nenheim's navel, we are confident any problems will be temporary, and measures under Near Nu will help learn the night of this pandemic. After a further brief period, we will bring in Near 3.
Near 3?
The rules under Nears 1 and Nu will continue, with the addition of the sound k being banned, to be replaced by l. We have considered these measures carefully, in line with recommendations from professors at Cambridge University. These new rules will apply not only to English, but also to other languages spoken in this country, including Nerlish, Polish, Portuguese, and Italian. I urge people to neep narm and narry on. Together, we nan conquer the COVID pandemic and return to normality in no time at all. Thank you.
Oh dear. Well, yeah, so it's interesting that so Else said that it's never been easier for comedians to come up with good stuff. But in the end, it's really sad. Yeah, look, it is. It's when we laugh at this sort of stuff, at least it can lighten our own mood. But yes, it's you know, humor can be used to deliver a message, and I hope that some of these messages really get through to you and help you to put things in a different perspective and think about what's best for you moving forward as we move forward with our own individual lives. Yes, as a population, yes, as a group of people, but with our own individual lives and being able to make the best choice for us each individually. So again, I'd like to finish with the message from Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister here, and then we can wrap things up.
Well, we're all responsible for our own health. And when it comes to informed consent and giving consent to whatever treatment or procedure you may have or I may have, then I'm ultimately responsible for what people do in their health treatment to me. And there has been the opportunity for people to visit their GP, to have that consultation. The government has provided that and funded that. And the informed consent process provides the decision to the individual. That's the sort of country we live in. People make their own decisions about their own health and their own bodies. That's why we don't have mandatory vaccination in relation to the general population here, because people make their own decisions. And we encourage people to make those decisions. We make as much information available to them as possible. The vaccines, like any vaccine, with any vaccine, there are risks associated, and I won't go into each of the individual ones because I don't want to particularly draw attention to anyone. But we all understand that with any vaccine, there are risk factors, and they're enumerated, and they're made available to people, and people make decisions about that. Well, I'll let the Chief Medical Officer and others speak to those because they have the details. I've been informed of those cases, and there have been other cases, and they're terribly tragic cases, like all of these are. And I feel for their families in those situations. And this is the terrible impact that pandemics have when you're responding to pandemics. But I do know that if vaccination rates, as we see, particularly for those who are older, are not where we want them to be, then people's lives are at risk.
So there you have it, message from Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister. And in case you missed it, the question that he was asked at the end was really related to the vaccine deaths and vaccine negative effects of vaccination. And that's what Prime Minister was saying, you know, my condolences to the families, but that's what happens in a pandemic. Well, as he asserted that it is your choice, we live in a free country, we live in a country where you have freedom of choice in healthcare, and so I hope that some of that information has been valuable for you, that you can take a lighthearted look at what's going on here, but also make your own choice moving forward and understand that you are responsible for your well-being now and into the future. So look, congratulations and thanks for being with me here on Lockdown Live. If you do have any really important links that you'd like to continue to share with the community, then please do so in the comments in this post. We had a lot of links and helpful information across in the preview post before this, before we went live. So we'll see whether we can sort of bring them all together and connect them all up, because I do think that there's a lot of information that you have that you might be able to share with other members of the community, and use the comments to do that. So really hope that that's been valuable to you. So again, Corey Sievers here with the Savvy team, encouraging you to be savvy with your choices and everything to do with your own personal well-being. So all the best. Look forward to connecting with you sometime in the future.